Lester, it's quite an important day today, and we often see some juicy tidbits coming out of this register being published, don't we?
That's right. Initially, or most importantly, the register is to make sure that there's no conflict of interest with MPs and their parliamentary work in regulating and making laws, and whether there's any conflict with their own personal interest. But you're right, there are some interesting gifts that are sometimes registered with the Ethics Committee. Everything from tickets to jazz festivals, to Persian rugs, to bottles of expensive whiskey. That's some of the things that we're going to be keeping an eye out for. But also, what is going to be interesting is also exactly how much interest MPs and particularly members of the executive, what business interests they have. We can look back at last year. The then Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa declared more than 100 million rand in shares. The former or the now current Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, declared various interests and various shares in different companies. And the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, declared no less than 4 family trusts that he was involved in. So lots of interesting material, lots of things to speculate on, but I think many people and many journalists are going to be scouring through this very thick book that gets published for some of the more juicy or some of the more interesting disclaimers which the MPs have registered with the Ethics Committee.
So, Lester, what is the limit when it comes to gifts, gifts of thanks that MPs no doubt get from all kinds of quarters? What is the limit in terms of monetary value which you are meant to declare?
There is no real limit, except that these gifts should either be declared or they should be returned. We must know that MPs and particularly ministers in the executive, they get lobbied, they get invited to so many things. This sometimes could be due to a completely sincere manner. People would like to be close to ministers and deputy ministers and obviously would like to curry favor by them, but also that there is also the other aspect of maybe trying to influence ministers, and this all then depends on this register. They say that sunlight makes everything clean, and this is exactly what this register is meant to do. It's meant for MPs, meant for members of the executive to disclose their interests, disclose their gifts, disclose what shares they have in any businesses, and make that open to the public to be as transparent as possible. But as I said, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on what exact business interests some members particularly of the executives have. If you can remember, last year, former ANC MP Pule Mabe disclosing his directorships in several businesses. Those stories have now come to light that of his business interests there. So these are the ways in which particularly journalists can connect the dots, go look into these interests, go look through these registers. What exactly have MPs and members of the executive, what have they detailed and listed with the register, and then go back and see if there's anything that may be untoward. But the chairperson of this ethics committee, Amos Musando, say this is exactly what this register is for, so that MPs can disclose, so that the public can see exactly what dealings their representatives in Parliament are dealing with, and in such a manner have a more transparent relationship with Parliament, with their private lives, and of course with the public.
Yeah, absolutely. Lester, I'm just taking a look, in fact, at the story that you did on this exact issue last year. So taking a look back at the Register of Members' Interests from 2016, I mean, the gifts ranging from genuine ostrich leather notepad holders, free tickets to the jazz festival and soccer matches, bottles of whiskey, and then, of course, there's the other end of the spectrum, apartments, houses, shares.
That's right. Particularly if you want to look at the back in the 2016 register of the then Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, he listed several properties, several apartments, several shares in various companies. Now, if I can remember to when Cyril Ramaphosa was first appointed as Deputy President about 9, almost 10 years ago, there was a separate briefing held by members of his staff. Remember, Cyril Ramaphosa, a man coming from significant wealth, significant business interests, from everything from cars to farming to cattle to, at that point, even takeaway restaurants. So there was a separate briefing just to go through the then Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's file, which was quite substantial on its own. But now, because he's President of the Republic, Cyril Ramaphosa now declares his interest to the Secretary of Cabinet as part of the Executive Ethics Code. So he's on a totally different platform, which he declares to. But going back to what you said, the interesting things that come out, I remember in the past a few years, everything from Persian rugs, a lot of liquor is exchanged from well-wishers and members of the public, and obviously people who want to curry favor with parliamentarians. That goes through and is often listed in this register. But I think we have to be cognizant that these are very important people. Many people want to curry favor. They want to seek influence from members of parliament and members in government. But at the same time, it's all part of, one would say, the diplomatic game. I do know that the Minister of International Relations, he or she often gets very extravagant gifts because they're traveling all over the world. And obviously, there are sometimes gifts of courtesy, gifts that are handed to them from visiting ambassadors or heads of missions to South Africa. It's all good and well. It's all good to accept. But also, they have to ensure that all those gifts that are given to them are registered with Parliament's register of members' interests.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Of course, we are looking at the 2016 register now, because today we will be hearing about the 2017 register. But the 2016 register, then Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa and, as you say, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation receiving, among MPs receiving the most gifts during that 2016 period. As we wait for the register from 2017 to be unveiled, so to speak, today, who do you reckon journalists will be keeping a close eye on?
Well, I think the man to watch at this moment is the new Deputy President, David Mabuza. His first time as essentially an MP in Parliament. He would be quite interesting. Journalists would probably want to go straight to his name in this very thick document that is handed out. Go straight to his name and see just exactly what he has registered, what he has declared in the register of members' interest. But then also the leaders of political parties, I think also quite interesting, would be that of Mmusi Maimane, the leader of the Democratic Alliance. If you can remember, in 2016, he did come into some trouble with the Ethics Committee. This was because he was running a re-election campaign for the leadership of the Democratic Alliance, and because they accepted donations to run that election campaign within the DA, he did come into some trouble with not declaring some of the funds that was raised. So leaders of opposition parties, Julius Malema, would also be quite interesting to see. But for me, I'm going straight to the Deputy President, David Mabuza, just to see exactly what is in his list, trying to find some more detail on quite an enigmatic man who's really come to light while playing very low in provincial politics, now flung into the national spotlight. Would be quite interesting what he has registered with Parliament.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much for that preview. Our reporter Lester Kiewit live to us there from Parliament. Parliament set to publish its register of MPs' business interests. Should be pretty interesting.